And then they decided whether, they say you're separated or retained. And so after that third board, he said, is there anything you'd like to say before we make our decision? And I said, yes, sir. I said, I will be an officer in the Navy because that is what I've chosen to do, whether it's here or somewhere else. When everybody returned from Christmas break, I was gone. It was like you were erased. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I lived in Maryland and Virginia as a child. My mom was married a couple of times. So my stepdad is who I really consider my dad. And my mom and my stepdad got married when I was 9. And we lived near the Chesapeake Bay, so there was a lot of boating and stuff like that. I'm not gonna brag, but I was a good high school student. I was an athlete in the Honor Society, all AP courses that we had at the time. My main sport was track, and it was a very tight team, and we spent a lot of time together, so that was kind of like my social thing too, was track. I was just in I guess kind of the jocks crowd, but the nerds too, because I was in Honor Society. It's funny, one of my junior high school teachers said, I should go to St. John's College. And now St. John's College is right across the street from the Naval Academy, and it's about as different a school could be from two schools right across the street from each other. The Naval Academy being military, everything is graded, not just your classes, but your conduct, your physical activity, everything's graded. You wear a uniform, you have to go to class, you have to do all these things. And then on the other side of the street is St. John's College. It's one of the oldest colleges in the country, and it's based on the Great Book system. So they don't have grades. They take oral tests. There are no sports there, and it's very, very different. And she said, you should go to St. John's. And then I ended up going to the Naval Academy. So it's kind of funny how things turn out a little bit differently.
Did you realize that was an option? Well, obviously I know.
This is a really good story. In 1976, actually I think it was 1977, it was President Ford authorized women to go to service academies.
And in the Air Force, 15% of the Air Force are my responsibility, just like the other 85%. And I am delighted that we've opened up full opportunity to all of our people, men, women, whatever. Nobody ever told me I couldn't be Chief of Staff because my eyes were brown or for any other reason. So now we've told these women that the sky is not a limit on them. They can go as high in the Air Force as they can.
So the first class of women went to the service academies, graduating in 1980. So they went in 77 and 4 years later, 1980. So we lived in the Annapolis area at that time, and it was a big story that women were going to the Naval Academy, and they were definitely very highly scrutinized. So I saw the Naval Academy in my backyard and always wanted to go to school there. From, say, 6th grade on, because it was kind of in my view, and I wanted to fly. So, and as a kid, every year at the Naval Academy, the Blue Angels do a show for the graduating class, just like at the Air Force Academy, the Thunderbirds do a show. And my mom used to pull me out of school to go see the Blue Angels every year. I knew that it was going to be structured. I was 17 years old when I went to school there. I was 7 miles away from home, which you would think maybe that's not a bad thing, but it was kind of a bad thing. I think I would have been better off if I had been far away. I knew it was going to be structured. I knew it was going to be hard. The military part and the running around, the athletic stuff, not a problem. It's the academic stuff that kicked my butt. And I probably didn't try hard enough. I know that there are people that might not be as smart as me that graduated. As a matter of fact, it's an interesting thing that I stay in touch with classmates from the Naval Academy. And we had our 30-year reunion 3 years ago. And of that group, we kind of had a little sub-reunion of just the women from the class. And, you remember I said that women graduated, first class graduated in 1980. I was the class of 1987. So I started there in 1983. So women hadn't been around very long at the service academies. So it was still kind of an experiment, and it's hard. And of the 113 women that started with my class, now think about this, the class had about, say, 1,300 people. And of that, only 113 of us were women. They graduated with, I think, about 50 in the class. And when we had our little mini reunion inside the reunion, we kind of talked about how things really were. And it's hard. It's hard to be a minority in that. And we were talking about the military. There was a lot of things that weren't open to us in terms of jobs once you graduated. So there was a lot of hard things. You're taking more classes, plus as the first year, known as a plebe, you had to know all these other facts that you had to, recite. You had to do all this other stuff in terms of, instead of just going to school. So the first day of the first academic year, I was placed on academic probation. And it's like, I haven't even done anything yet. So why am I on academic probation? So they look at your grades in high school, they look at your SAT scores, and they said, you're gonna have a hard time here. It's like, I had to go to see a counselor who was in the leadership department, and he said, well, the only reason that you're here is to get an MRS degree. You all know what that is, right? MRS degree? Mrs. Get a husband. And I thought, well, there are a hell of a lot easier ways to get an MRS degree than to go to this hard school, right? So it was kind of so it was tough.
Everyone here is required to participate in at least one sport at all times. It can be on an intramural or a varsity level, and it can be any sport that you'd like. I would guess that there are about 24 sports here that you could pick from. And you have every opportunity here to be a national champion if you just have the desire to do it in any sport.
And I ran track there. And in retrospect, I probably should not have. Because collegiate sports, that's a whole other thing that and it was cool that I can say that I got to compete at the collegiate level. But in reality, I might have been better off if I had not.
how were you treated differently, you know, maybe, you know, in the classroom, outside the classroom?
Well, I didn't have as rough a time as some other people did, but you know, everybody was a plebe. You're the lowest of the low. And I think I had a very good company. You know, our group was pretty tight, but it's you know, you can look for discrimination or, you know, being treated differently, or you could not look for that. I mean, I felt like everybody was treated like crap because we were the bottom.
You have to remember that it's nothing personal. It's in order that you learn to react under pressure, so that when you're in the actual Navy and a pressure situation arises, you'll be able to react well and not panic.
There was some things, but what can you do? I mean, I don't know, a friend of mine, one of the girls from the class, after our reunion and this little get-together that we had, she decided she wanted to write a book about our class. And so she sent out an extensive questionnaire, and she got me thinking about some stuff that I hadn't thought about in a really long time. One of which was the guy saying, oh, you're only here to get a husband. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. But yeah, it's a different place, and it's tough. I think things are probably getting better, but I don't know.
When you were at the academy, did you experience any harassment?
No. Yeah. But like I said, mostly my class was they were pretty good. But at the end of the year, the end of the academic year, when the class graduates, those guys, the seniors that graduate, they have all kinds of stuff going on that week. The commissioning week is what it's called. And one of the things is the tradition. There's a lot of traditions in the military.
Herndon Monument, that's sort of the symbol of it all being over. Monument, that's sort of the symbol of it all being over finally. All the plebes.
So that it's very hard to climb. Greased, so that it's very hard to climb, which is the first thing you wear. It's a Dixie cup, which is
it's like everything else here. It's a team effort to work together. It's like everything else here. It's a team effort and to get that together, to put one man on the top, and to get that cap down. When you get the hat on it, then that's it. That's when it's over.
The plebe is a fourth class, fully recognized by the brigade. Doesn't have to call anyone sir.
Well, if you think about it, if you're making a human pyramid, you put the big people on the bottom, and it gets smaller, because then you get like the little gymnast person to climb up to the top, right? And the littlest person probably would be a woman, right? Well, that's when you found out who your friends really were, because when you tried to climb up on the thing, because it's all supposed to be a big teamwork thing, right? Get there and get up there. Didn't want a girl to get up there, so you got thrown off. So that was kind of sad. Found out who our friends were that day.
What year was it when the academic struggles, was that
from day one? According to looking at my scores and everything. But if your grades weren't good, then you had to go to an academic board. And I went to an academic board after second semester of plebe year. And then I went to summer school, and my grades still didn't come up after summer school. So when the academic year, right before the academic year started, I went to another academic board. And the superintendent said, I will not see you here again. So when I went to the third academic board, I was pretty much out. And that was after first semester of my sophomore year. So academics, one of the things they do plebe summer, besides running around and being yelled at and learning useless facts and being able to regurgitate a bunch of trivia, is that you take a bunch of placement tests, so that you know where you start in the academic year. The only thing I validated was a year of French. So, but you took all those tests, and so academics, was a struggle from the beginning.
So when you found out that you had that board meeting, gives you the bad news, how devastating was it?
The worst thing that had ever happened in my life up to that point. So this is how the academic board goes. There's a big, long table. And at the table, there are very important people. The superintendent is at the end of the table. He's in charge of the Naval Academy. He's an admiral. And then all the heads of all the departments are all on this table. And then behind you are the people that are actually cheering for you. Your company officer, maybe your athletic coach, anybody that's kind of on your side. And the way the academic board works is you're essentially kicked out, you're separated, and they're trying to decide whether to retain you. So it's not like I'm still in school, they're gonna kick me out. It's like I'm kicked out, I'm trying to get back in. And it's very stressful. And so all the people from each company have to go to this academic board, and you have to be in your uniform. Your uniform has to be perfect. And you sit there and you wait in this little room, and then you have to go in and plead your case. And actually, the superintendent asked me if I was going to quit track, and I said, "No, sir, I don't want to quit track. It's kind of like track was a fun thing. It was hard, but it got you away from the school, and you got it. I said no. I should have quit. But and then they decided whether they say you're separated or retained. And so after that third board, he said, "Is there anything you'd like to say before we make our decision?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I will be an officer in the Navy because that is what I've chosen to do, whether it's here or somewhere else." And so I left, they made a vote, and they go, "Oh, she's out." I had to come back in, and they said something about you're separated. And then I left. And that was right before second semester of sophomore year. So I had to come back early from Christmas break for that. So when everybody returned from Christmas break, I was gone. It was like you were erased, which is kind of sad.
What did you do then?
I cried a lot. I went back home, and this is kind of funny is I went back to see my high school guidance counselor, and we're still friends on Facebook. And I said, this is what happened, and I don't know what to do. And she said, "I can get you into the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus this semester." And I was like, "But I don't know what I want to do." So I took the semester off and I worked. And then in the fall, I started at the University of Maryland, College Park, because I still wasn't sure how I was going to do this, but I knew that I needed a college degree. So I went to Maryland. I was a civilian for a year. And while I was at Maryland, I saw these guys in Navy uniforms. Now, I knew Maryland had Air Force ROTC, but I was like, what are these Navy guys doing? So I was like, "Hey, what are you guys?" And they said, "Well, we're Navy ROTC." And I said, "Well, where do you do your classes?" They said, "Well, we have to go to downtown to Washington, D.C., to George Washington University. It's called Crosstown. And you take your Navy classes there. And your schooling is parallel to the Naval Academy, except you don't have to wear a uniform every day. And you're not in the military school, but they take the same classes. In the summertime, you do the same thing. that they do. And then you get commissioned as an officer from ROTC instead. And so I went and I checked it out, and I found out there was such a thing as 2-year ROTC, because I thought, okay, well, you got to do this all 4 years. It's like, nope, there's a thing called 2-year ROTC, and in order to do that, you have to go to this summer training program. It happens to be in Newport, Rhode Island, and it's 6 weeks long in the summer, and you take those naval science classes that you didn't get those first 2 years, plus you have Marine gunnery sergeants to run around and yell at you, make you do physical training stuff. And then once you finish that, you start the academic year as a junior. You just catch up. So that's what I did. So my class, that I would have graduated a class in 1987 at the Naval Academy, I graduated in 1988 from University of Maryland.
In between that little gap there, that year, were you still committed to becoming an officer?
Yeah.
So you didn't lose hope or faith?
No. I knew I could do it, but it set me back. And like I said, it was the worst thing that happened to me up to that point. Definitely.
What happens then? What?
I was commissioned as an ensign in the Navy in 1988. And then I was a general unrestricted line officer, which means you can do a variety of different kinds of jobs, and I didn't have to go to any special schools after graduation. So, in the Navy, if you're going to drive a ship or a submarine or fly an airplane, you have to go to special schools after that. I did not. And the career field I was in, General Unrestricted Line, which the acronym would be GIRL, doesn't exist anymore. So I was stationed in Newport, Rhode Island. And my first job, I was the admin officer at the Naval Academy Prep School, which is located there. I was stationed in Newport for 3 years, and during that time I had 3 different jobs. I was the admin officer at the prep school. I was the athletic officer at Officer Candidate School. So I ran the PT program, the PE program for the school. And so I got to run around doing the PT, I got to be in good shape, got to work out all the time. So every 6 months, everybody in the Navy takes a PRT, physical readiness test. And so I had to administer that test to the staff, and I had to administer the test to the officer candidates that were going through there. The officer candidate school was 16 weeks program. And so they took the PT test like 3 times, and they had to be in shape. And there were people, the difference in physical fitness of the officer candidates. Now, everybody that goes, they know they're going to have to pass this test. And it's not like it's a secret. Everybody knows that you had to do push-ups, sit-ups, 1.5-mile run. So you know what you got to do. So there were people that could not run from here to the door if their life depended on it that bad, to people that had gone to the Olympic trials for swimming. It was like, that's a big bunch of different athletic, physical fitness level, and we got to get them all to this standard. So the people that were like elite athletes, they kind of got out of shape. And then the people that never done anything, they got in shape. So everybody kind of moved to the middle. But it was a fun job. I mean, I enjoyed it. Guard Force Division Officer. That was the tough one. So in the Guard Force, I had like 27 very junior enlisted folks that work for me. And their job is to be out at the gate, standing 4-hour watches. And the gates are manned 24 hours a day. And I had a petty officer that worked for me, a couple petty officers that worked for me. It's a very unskilled job, so I had a lot of folks that were not very happy, and very young, and first time away from home. It was the most challenging job that I had leadership-wise. I worked in public affairs for Commander Naval Base San Diego, and I did that for about a year, and then I did protocol, which the program officer works for the admiral there, and you coordinate his schedule, and it's like all kinds of high-level stuff. When visiting dignitaries visit San Diego, I would coordinate the visit with them, and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
So after the second year in San Diego, what happened then?
Okay, so I started flying in high school. I soloed in high school. I didn't get my license in high school, but so I wanted to fly, and I wanted to fly in the Navy. I had hay fever, so they said, nope, you can't fly in the Navy. So anyway, I would have had to get a waiver to get into flight school, and they just weren't offering it. And at the time, they were, the military goes like this, right? Big times, small times. We were starting to draw down, so they didn't need as many pilots. So they could get even pickier about it. So they weren't granting any waivers. And the cutoff for learning to fly in the military was 27 years old. So I had my private pilot's license. I got that when I was stationed in Newport, Rhode Island. And, I still want to fly. And I was like, okay, 27 is the cutoff. And it's not going to happen. So I want to fly. So I'm going to have to pursue this in the civilian world. So I'd already met my commitment of my 4 years. So I resigned my active duty commission. And then I went to Jacksonville, Florida, and I stayed in the reserves. So I served seven years in the reserves. As a member of the reserves, I could still have access to the Navy base. And at Naval Air Station Jacksonville, they had a flying club on the base, and they had little airplanes, civilian airplanes, and I could fly there. And so I had that. I had the GI Bill, which helped pay for 60% of my flying. And so that's how I got all the rest of my ratings. And while I served in the Navy Reserve, and I was working on my flying there, and it was a cheaper place to live.
What is it about flying that you love or love?
I've always wanted to fly. I always wanted to fly airplanes. And when my mom came home with Mr. Petzman, she said, this is Mr. Petzman, and he has an airplane. I was like, hey, this is a good thing. He had a little airplane. And that's what I learned to started flying in. So I've always wanted to fly.
So then you fly now?
I fly for American Airlines.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been an American almost 21 years.
What was it like to get that job?
Well, that wasn't my first flying job. Believe me, there was a lot of flying jobs in between there. But I started out as a flight instructor. So you're teaching other people how to fly. And then I flew charter, where I was flying a small twin-engine airplane. And it's like an air taxi. Somebody pays you to fly from place to place. And I did that in the Southeast. And then I flew a little bit of corporate in a bigger twin-engine airplane. And then I got hired by a commuter. So I was flying a 19-passenger airplane. And then I got hired by a different commuter where I flew a 37-passenger airplane. It was getting bigger and bigger. And then I got hired at American in 1999. So I've flown, the biggest airplane I guess I've flown is the 787. But I'm a captain on the 737 now. So, yeah.
Now I know your husband's in the military.
He was.
Or was in the military. Did you meet while you were in the military?
No. We actually met at the second commuter. And he was active duty Air Force, and he's older than I am. And he did 20 years in the Air Force. And he was a Special Forces guy, kind of a way different animal. And so we're kind of an unusual couple in that we both were in the military. Neither one of us actually flew in the military, and we're both airline captains. So, yeah. And we'll have our 20th anniversary this year.
How do you think your life would be different if you had ended up making it through the Naval Academy?
We would not be sitting here right now because I wouldn't have met my husband. I would have flown in the Navy. I probably would have made the Navy a career, at least 20 years. So I think it would have definitely been different.
Are you glad the way things ended?
I am glad the way things ended. I do regret that I didn't get to fly in the Navy. I mean, I always regret that. But there are different paths, and you just don't always know how it's going to turn out. But it's turned out pretty darn good.
I first learned about the Harlem Veteran Project when I was in Mr. Stange's U.S. History class. Mr. Stange taught VetDoc, and whenever he spoke to us about the class, he always seemed very passionate, and it made me very intrigued and very interested in the class. And so the following year, I decided that I was going to sign up for VetDoc. So I signed up, and after the first few weeks of class, we finally got to choose our veterans off a long list of names. Out of those long lists of names, I chose Kelly Jeffries. And all I knew about Kelly was that she was a lieutenant commander, a naval construction battalion, and she worked in public affairs and was a protocol officer. After receiving her interview and listening to her stories, I realized that she was so much more than just that. And Kelly has taught me so much through her stories, and she has taught me to never give up and to keep pushing through. Listening to her stories and hearing all the hardships that she had to conquer, she always kept going and she never lost hope. And so that really related to me when I was finishing her doc, and when things just seemed like it was too hard and I wanted to give up, I just had to remember to keep pushing through. And so I want to thank you, Kelly, for sharing your stories and for giving me such an important life lesson to hold on to for the rest of my life. So thank you.